So did you get into the conversation of like, this is adult entertainment. This is not like a accurate, necessarily healthy representation of what that's supposed to look like,
Mm-hmm.
because that's one of the biggest critiques about pornography and just the availability. Like I'm a huge advocate for paywalls because of situations like that. There needs to be some way to verify that it's not a minor on
Child.
the other end,
Yeah.
but we're not there yet. And then if you don't, you have so many parents that avoid the topic because of that discomfort within themselves or insecurity or shame. So then their kid is left thinking, oh, well, this is
This
what
is
it's
normal.
like,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it's interesting because you have the boy and the girl that the consequences that can kind of go into for both of them is very different, right? It lead
Mm-hmm.
the boy to mistreating a woman or like not wanting to ever be romantic with somebody because he's so uncomfortable with it and he doesn't understand like that's not normal, or
Mm-hmm.
a girl to either allow it or the same thing, kind of like not be able to experience real intimacy because like she wasn't taught what the healthy version of that is.
Mm-hmm. I think he was young.
Yeah.
And so we've touched on it since then too.
Yeah.
I think then what was important for me to discuss with him, it turned into then a sex conversation, right?
Yeah.
So it went from porn to sex.
Right.
And I was like, so, I wanted to find out what was going on at school. Are other people having sex? What's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just letting him share. And he was like, oh, God, Mom, no, nobody's doing that. And I was like, hey, y'all are getting there in age. And he was like, no, nobody's going to be having sex till they're like 18. I was like, I don't think so. I think the average boy loses his virginity at 16. And he was like, I'm like, Google it. I'm like, I'm going to search it up. And it is. It's 16 and
Wow.
17
Yeah.
for girls.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, how'd you know? I'm like, I don't know. It was a guess.
Used to be young one
But
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
I just told him, for me, it was more important for me at that point to remind him that sex is an amazing thing. And it's a beautiful thing as long as both people are wanting to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a beautiful thing, but it can also not be. And so there, my drive or my desire was to keep the lines of communication open. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to tell you can't have sex till you're married. That's what my family did. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to go to hell if you do. So I got married at 18. What a bad decision. Like, if I would have had sex with him, I wouldn't have married him. So that's not my goal for them. My goal is that they treat themselves respectfully and others respectfully. So I was like, my biggest dream would be that before you have sex with someone, you talk to Mom, because there's a lot of repercussions to sex that you don't think about.
Mm-hmm.
There's STDs, children, etc., that can come from it. And of course, they're like rolling their eyes. But I think that when that time comes, they'll feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So we just kind of keep broaching the subject a little bit here, a little bit there. And when I see that they're like, okay, then I let them. I feel like their kids are like bees. Like they just buzz in on this topic and then buzz in on another, and you don't want to hammer it too much.
Mm-hmm. No, that's beautiful. You're very fortunate because I think
I
that
think so.
sounds like the ideal situation. Where was I going to go with that? I had a good question.
I mean, dude,
It
they're
was
not
a
grown yet, so we'll
selfish.
see.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I think this is working.
No, so okay, this is where I was gonna go. So I think that like you sharing that is so beautiful and useful for a lot of people. You just said, your family said if you have sex out of wedlock, you're gonna go to hell, and this is a terrible thing. So that led to you getting married at a very, very, very
Yeah.
young age, and you're like, well, if I had sex with him before, I wouldn't have married him. Of course.
I know.
Of course, how important that is. But we're almost like, and I'm sure you've seen this content just rising and thriving, or maybe it's my algorithm of this very evangelical trad lifestyle that's kind of coming, like resurfacing, and it's almost this puritanical culture of that, like you have to get married first. Body count is this huge deal. you
Sorry, my
you
eyes almost got stuck
you
in the back of my
cannot
head.
sleep with a man or he will not respect you anymore unless there's a ring on the finger and all of this thing. And I'm like, I had a very similar framework growing up where sex was this thing that I could give away, and not the man, right? Like he's somehow protected and exempt from all of this, but it's just for women. So there's this thing, that virginity, your purity, that you give away, and once it's gone forever. There goes your value. So it better be to the one and only man that at some young age you decide is there. But when you look at it and you have that so much weight and shame and pressure on it, you end up with the wrong person, because you're like, I just gave this thing away. And shit, it was the wrong guy, but I can't get it back. So
Mm-hmm.
now what do I do? And then fast forward 8 years later, I'm like reclaiming my sexuality and my worth and my value and saying that didn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like not anything, because I do think that sex can be what you want it to be. Like, if you want it to be like this very spiritual, intimate, connective thing, it can. And if you want it to be junk food, it can, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's how you engage with it. But having all of that pressure and like other people's shame on me left me stuck for such a long time. And I want younger women to know this. It's like, you can make sex whatever you want it to be. Like, don't let someone put that pressure on you, because it is a very easy way to end up with the wrong person.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing is, it's what do you feel and believe?
Mm-hmm.
You know, of course your virginity is important. Of course it's important who you decide to share that with. But I mean, hate me or love me, I think that people make it such a big deal. And I think in doing that, they create these scenarios where, like you said, or like me, you marry the wrong person because you feel pressured. You stay in the relationship because, well, you gave him what?
What?
Am I not whole now?
Your
Because I'm
hymen?
not.
Well,
Right?
I didn't
No,
even know I
gave
had it to give away.
Girl, I think I gave that to a tampon. It's like, what? Do those even hang around anymore? Like, so no, what did I give? Are you saying that once I have sex, I'm no longer worth what I was before? Cut me a break. Your self-worth is not based on that. Now, I'm not saying, I mean, go out and have sex with every person you meet, unless if that's what you want to do, you can also do that. But my big thing is there respect between the two of you? Do you both go in knowing, and do you both go in understanding what you're expecting from the experience?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just an experience. It's like
Yeah.
you and I are having an experience right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we both expected to come and do this and to bring our A game and to have fun. And
Mm-hmm.
so then it's a healthy experience.
Right.
And I think sex is very similar. Like, what are our expectations from this? And are we both able to consent, and are we both headed in the same direction? Whether it's just that we wanted to be together and enjoy this moment, or we want to pursue something, greater. I think the problem happens when we don't communicate, and one of the parties is using it as a way to get something. They might not want to tell you, but like, okay, if I sleep with him, then I get this, or
Mm.
vice versa. It's like, that's where the problem comes in. It's communication. It's not the actual act.